Hi everyone, this is David Opterbeck. As many of you know, I am an elder here at Westside, and I want to talk to you for a minute about a Bible study I'll be leading starting in the second week of April on the book of Romans. First, I want to talk a little bit about the format of this study. It's going to be unique in that it's going to be a hybrid online Bible study. I've done this kind of format in a number of my university classes, but I haven't tried it yet in a Bible study. So we'll be meeting every week online. There will be a discussion forum where we can exchange ideas and talk about what we've been reading and studying. And then once every month or so, on a morning that we'll set up, we'll get together in person for those who want to and are able, and we'll kind of talk about what we've been studying. So we'll try and put together the best pieces of an online experience and of a in-person experience and see how that all works together. So why study Romans? As many of you probably know, Romans is one of the key texts in the New Testament and in the Christian tradition as a whole. So for our desire to want to study the Bible, to study Scripture, to understand what God is saying to us, and to look more deeply into our Christian faith, this is an important text for us to be able to dive into together. But it is, of course, a really difficult text. It has been studied and debated and argued over probably for the whole 2,000 years since Paul first wrote it to the small growing church in Rome. And there are many flashpoints in Christian thought and Christian practice that arise from the text of the book of Romans. That alone makes it interesting and important for us to study together. It can be and can seem a little challenging, a little intimidating to approach a text like this. There are these themes of sin and of judgment and of election and calling and predestination that are very challenging and very difficult. But it helps, I think, to understand, to remember that when Paul wrote Romans, it wasn't a theological treatise, it wasn't a systematic theology, it was a letter to a real church, a group of real people to whom Paul was ministering in Rome. And it fits into the context of other letters that Paul wrote to other churches in the Greco-Roman world, including the letter of 1 Corinthians that we studied last year. So it's a letter, and to understand it in that literary context already begins to open a window on what the text is really all about. Second, it's important to remember that Paul is writing as a faithful Jew who has become a follower of Jesus. Now, often in the history of Christian interpretation, certain parts of the letter to the Romans have been taken as supersessionist, that is, as of kind of Christians replacing the Jews. But that is about as far from the truth as could possibly be, given the context of the letter and given who Paul was and when he was writing this letter and the purpose for which it's written. And so scholars have begun in recent decades to really unlock the Jewishness of Paul. It sometimes is called the new perspective on Paul, although it really isn't necessarily all that new. And I find this approach really liberating and helpful and valuable. To me, it has really opened up the beauty, the incredible clarity and depth and wisdom and mysticism in the letter to the Romans. And so we'll, particularly as we work on the really challenging part of this book, chapters 1 through 11, we'll see how Paul develops an argument that the Jews remain God's people, but that now also the Gentiles are incorporated into the family of the Jews. That is, everyone, all of the human community, is incorporated into God's family. And we'll see how to make sense, or at least begin to make sense, of some of those really difficult texts about sin and election and predestination and all of those sorts of things in this text within that context. And then we'll also see how really Romans is also a deeply pastoral letter within chapters 1 through 11, and then also in the remainder of the book, which is more explicitly pastoral. And we'll dig into some of Paul's concerns for that Roman congregation and how some of those concerns might relate to us today. So I hope that you'll join us and be part of this study. Even if you can't necessarily fully participate every week, I hope you can at least read along with us, jump into the discussion boards once in a while, and join us in some of our monthly in-person meetings as we work through this really important and ultimately, I think, really beautiful document.